corner in about 2 minutes. 2 seconds. Oh, Parker answering in kind.
An intern. Oh my God. Jabari Parker.
Did he hit his head on the rim?
Wow. Yes, he did. He
Oh,
pulled it down on his own head.
There was a time when Jabari Parker was one of, if not the most anticipated prospect in the entire country. A National Player of the Year at Duke, 2-time Mr. Basketball of Illinois. Some would argue he was the most talented prospect they've seen in a long, long time. And he was destined to become a superstar. Yet, if you look back at the 2014 class, out of every player drafted in the lottery, which are the top 14 picks, did you know that Jabari Parker is the first player of these 14 to fall out of the NBA? He played his final NBA game on January 2nd, 2022. Heck, even Nick Stauskas and Dante Exum lasted longer than Parker, which is insane to think about. By the age of 26, Jabari Parker went from a promising young player with all the potential in the world to a bench warmer for the Boston Celtics, who reached the finals that year, no thanks to Jabari, who got waived halfway through the season. Nobody knew it at the time, but it turned out to be his final NBA game. Or maybe not. As of this video, Jabari has yet to turn 30 years old. There's still a chance for a comeback, though that chance is getting slimmer and slimmer by the day. But how did it get to this point? How did one of the world's most renowned prospects, a player who even Coach K deemed as probably the most talented player who's ever graced the court at Duke, have the shortest career out of every lottery pick from his class? A player who drew heavy comparisons to Carmelo Anthony with his playstyle and body shape, but with a career that wasn't even a fraction as good as Melo's or a fraction as long. And now he's desperate to make a comeback. But will it actually happen?
One thought, one statement about this first year outside the United States. What's wrong, boy? Are you okay?
Let's take a look at how Jabari Parker failed in the NBA and what caused him to become completely useless so quickly.
With the second pick in the 2014 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Jabari Parker from Duke University.
Drafted second overall in the ever so iconic 2014 class, a class that was deemed as a two-man race between Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins. While both of their careers started off kinda shaky and neither of them reached their maximum potential, Wiggins still carved out a fantastic long career and found his niche in the league. Parker, on the other hand, experienced the exact opposite. When he joined the Milwaukee Bucks, he was set up to fail. So they were in the midst of a transition period. They quickly moved on from the Monte Ellis, Brandon Jennings experiment, which we all knew was a complete failure before it even started. This prompted them to go into rebuilding mode and thus acquiring young, hopeful prospects who can lead a new future in Milwaukee. Among these prospects included Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton, both of whom arrived to Milwaukee just 1 year prior to the arrival of Jabari Parker. Their hope was, according to former Bucks GM John Hammond, they had a trio of young players who were incredibly versatile, who can play multiple positions. And as the NBA moved towards positionless basketball, there were high hopes for this team, and especially Jabari Parker. In fact, before Giannis and Middleton's rise into stardom, John Hammond believed Parker was the only one with legitimate all-star potential, even stating shortly after draft night, quote, "We need him to become a star. To have a player like this, we can't emphasize this enough." Immediately, Parker was embraced by the entire city of Milwaukee. Just about everyone had so much faith in him to become the face of the organization, and possibly the face of the NBA.
John Collins wondering why he didn't hear a whistle. Parker on its end. He went to the left hand.
Unfortunately, there was one guy who did not like Jabari. the guy whose coaching career has been plagued with controversy, Jason Kidd. At this point of Kidd's coaching career, he was seen as a laughingstock, from his antics like "hit me," to his lack of game plan that made fans wonder if he even knew how to coach. However, the one supposed strength of Kidd is his ability to uplift his players and strengthen his relationship with them. As cliché as it sounds, he was a player's coach who was well liked despite his lackluster coaching ability. Heck, when he was fired a few years later, Giannis was absolutely devastated and tried to call the front office to save Kidd's job.
It was a big part of my success. He trusted me, he put the ball in my hands, he motivated me on a daily basis. He pushed me to be great and not to be mediocre.
It seemed like he could do no wrong, not even in the eyes of the Bucks superstar. Except for Jabari Parker, his interactions with Kidd were a bit different. According to Bucks journalist Gary Wolfell, there were several instances that drove a wedge between Parker and Kidd. One former Bucks player told me Kidd was really tough on Jabari when I was there, and he shouldn't have been. He had no reason to do that. Jabari is a good kid. And another former Bucks player claimed Kidd threw Parker under the bus when, after Parker had talked publicly in general and non-critical terms about a team meeting, Kidd disciplined him by not starting him the next game. Kidd told reporters his decision came after the players voted on the matter. Yeah, that happened in Jabari's second year in the league. I mean, that seems kind of insane. Can you imagine a head coach asking his players to vote on benching another player? Kidd was upset with Jabari when it came to his defensive efforts and not being in the best shape. Both critiques were valid, but perhaps he was overly harsh on him compared to the other young players on the roster. However, even in his rookie season, before all this stuff happened, Kidd was trying to trade Parker before he even suffered his first ACL injury. Oh, and that's something we should talk about. In Jabari's rookie season, after playing just 25 games, he would suffer what ultimately became one of 2 ACL ruptures within his first 3 seasons in the NBA. Both of these ACL tears happened in the same knee, his left knee.
Don't talk about that knee. You're right.
In combination with his sour relationship with his coach, Parker's early years in Milwaukee were tumultuous, and he spent half that time rehabbing, just trying to get back onto the court, and trying to get into the good graces of Jason Kidd. Despite all that, by his 3rd season, he still managed to average over 20 points a game on respectable shooting splits, as he developed into a legitimate secondary scoring option behind Giannis. These two were deemed the future of Milwaukee, and it seemed like both of them could only get better from here. And while Giannis made tremendous leaps every single season, reaching the upper echelon of NBA superstardom, Jabari, unfortunately, saw his season get cut short yet again, with yet another ACL injury. Some cited him being overweight as the main cause of that, and playing in a way that puts too much pressure on his knees. This time, though, his efforts to bounce back and return to the court was filled with obstacles, and when he eventually made it back, Jason Kidd wanted him to come off the bench. As the Bucks became better and better without him, Parker was more focused on his own recovery, and he couldn't keep up as the team ramped up into playoff contention. After a very long recovery from his second ACL tear, Parker's role on the team diminished so much that the organization saw no place for him anymore. And thus, in the summer of 2018, they retracted his qualifying offer, allowing him to sign with a new team, the Chicago Bulls. So, before we get into the rest of his career, at this stage, there were people on 2 sides of the fence in regards to Jabari Parker. The optimists believed it was his injuries that slowed down his development, and he's still so talented that he should be a starter. His struggles weren't due to a lack of talent, but poor coaching and injuries. The pessimists, however, believed that even when healthy, Jabari had so many flaws in his game, particularly on defense. Not only did he have arguably the slowest foot speed in the league, but he exhibited a complete lack of effort on top of that. So not only is he physically limited, he mentally doesn't care enough to play defense, nor does he have the talent or defensive instinct to excel at this end of the court.
Cantor, Hazonia, Layup is good, and is Canada going to have to play in the third? Moutier, the crossover gets inside. Layup is good.
His fall from glory is almost solely due to his own faults, his own mindset. So which perception of Jabari was correct? Well, when he arrived in Chicago, it became quite clear with a single statement he made to the public. "I just stick to my strengths. Look at the league, they don't pay people to play defense. To say that's a weakness, you can say that's everybody's weakness." It was at this moment where everybody stopped giving him the benefit of the doubt. Instead, we started to look at Jabari through a different lens, like he's actively sabotaging his own career, because he's simply looking to get paid. Initially, he had a good start in Chicago, but you know what's funny? You can see the exact moment Jabari Parker went from a key part of the Bulls' rotation to completely out of the rotation. On December 4th, 2018, Jim Boylen became the new head coach, and his first decision? Bench Jabari Parker. Not just bench him, but not even play him at all. Parker accumulated 9 straight DMPs. It seemed like Jason Kidd wasn't that crazy after all. Kidd and Boylen are both known as being more defensively minded coaches, so if a player is a liability on that end of the court, they'll have a short leash with them. Parker is not just a liability, but in their eyes, he's completely unplayable. Can you guess what happens next? Yep. Jim Boylen went to the Bulls front office and they asked him, "Is there anything you want to do before the trade deadline? Something to improve the team?" And Boylen immediately brought up Jabari Parker. If purposely sitting him out for 9 straight games wasn't enough proof for his disdain for Parker, this definitely put the nail in the coffin, going to the front office and demanding him be traded.
Hey Jim, you're a clown. Any smart person would fire you. You're a clown, buddy.
You know what the sad part is? Teams around the league were well aware of Parker's situation in Chicago. Oh, they knew that the Bulls were trying to get rid of him. Just like Jim Boylen, every other team also viewed him as a low-value prospect who's a detriment to the team. Hence why other teams were offering just complete crap for him. They were trying to dump salary in exchange for him. And apparently, that's the only value he had in the open market. Ultimately, when a trade was finally found, it was indeed a salary dump, with the Wizards dumping Otto Porter Jr.'s insane contract onto the Bulls just so they can get Parker off the team. His time in Chicago was basically the last time Parker was relevant, as he bounced around 4 different teams in the next 3 years before falling out of the NBA in early 2022. Since then, however, Parker has been determined, some would say desperate, to make an NBA comeback. Filled with regret about the decisions he's made over his career, he needed to redeem himself. When we reflect on his career, the only thing we could use to describe him is a missed opportunity, a huge swath of wasted talent that could have been so much more. While there were obvious signs of his remarkable scoring potential, being able to score in so many different ways, as a bruiser, as a post-up player, a three-point shooter, though inconsistent and kind of a black hole, he still had a very competent offensive package that we hoped he could build on. It feels like just yesterday when people used to compare him to Andrew Wiggins on draft night, with scouts believing Wiggins had the higher ceiling due to his athleticism and quickness, whereas Jabari was a finished product, with arguably the most polished offensive game ever for a 19-year-old coming out of Duke. There were certainly moments throughout his career where we saw that potential inside of him, yet due to a combination of bad luck and lack of mental fortitude, Parker never had a real chance to reach his potential, and instead felt the entire league was out to get him, and unfairly criticized him. He felt he still deserved to be in the NBA. His ego was getting out of control, feeling like he deserves more than he actually does. If you witnessed how his career ended, you think there's no way he'd ever return. However, there's still a sliver of hope. While playing in Europe for several years, Parker has gotten into better shape than he's ever had before. Remember Gary Wolfell, the old Milwaukee journalist? Well, he's been following him during his time in Barcelona, and apparently there's been NBA scouts in Europe who've been watching him closely. Wolfell stated, "Some NBA officials who watched Parker play last season claim he may be in the best shape of his pro career. Parker, who played at around 255 pounds with the Bucks, is now around 230 pounds. Parker, who is 29, gave strong consideration to returning to the Bucks last summer before signing with Barcelona. He's already met with several NBA teams, though most of them didn't have the space to give him the money he wants, hence why he's still waiting for a real contract to lure him back to the NBA. Perhaps his time may be coming, soon. There's still a chance to reinvigorate his reputation. He does not want to be considered the most disappointing prospect of the 2014 class. 'Cause right now, as of this video, he is. Nobody disappointed more than Jabari Parker. Thank you all so much for watching. What are your thoughts on Jabari Parker? Do you think he'll ever return to the NBA and get his second chance? When do you think it'll happen? Let me know in the comments. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.